Nice with you. I think we're going to have budget hearing before everything to get everyone here at every other meeting. That's a joke. It just seems, I love it. It's good to be here. Okay, April 26, 2022, 1:30 p.m. special meeting. All right, the Sutter County Board of Supervisors meeting will be open to the public. Those that wish to attend the board meeting are encouraged to wear a face covering as recommended by the California Department of Public Health. Members of the public will be allowed to address the board with respect to the items listed on the agenda only. The law requires that businesses not appearing on the agenda may not be discussed at a special meeting. If you wish to speak on any item appearing on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card noting the number of the agenda item about which you wish to speak and present it to the board clerk. Can we get a roll call, please?
Supervisor McKelly?
Here.
Supervisor Flores?
Here.
Supervisor Ziegemeier?
Here.
Supervisor Baines?
Present.
Supervisor Conant?
Present.
All right, Mr. Smith, you're up.
So I didn't know if we had any public comment, Mr. Chairman.
I do have one public comment. Would now be the time? All right. We have Miss Diane Jager.
Good afternoon, members of the board. As a resident in the county and for many, many years, for my lifetime, I just would like to bring forth some questions and hope that they can be answered through the process, or that you would at least think about them. First of all, I would like to ask if there has been audits completed at any time or currently on the effectiveness and efficiency of any programs that are run through the county. Meaning, even though you may say you have grant money or whatever the funds come from, what is actually the effectiveness of that program? Is it worth the money that's put into it? Is there changes that need to be made to make it more efficient or effective? And that has to be an ongoing audit, because a lot of programs, recidivism will pop up in a year or two. So it's not oh yes, it's a fix. Also, how many of the programs that have been started in the county started as grants, and that over when the grant rolled, ended, has rolled over onto the general? Is there a schedule for audits to be performed throughout, as far as scheduled audits in the county? And the last thing is, remember when you were putting this budget together, that because of the rise in the budget for the county, right now, every single person, including everyone in this room, is carrying a load of over $4,000 per person to cover this budget. And you can say, oh, it comes from grants, no money comes from any place except our pocketbooks. That's how it is. It rolls up. And that $4,000 is per person. So if you have a couple of kids, you're talking about $16,000 that you're carrying the load. So I know you've all are in business. I was in business for over 30 years. And at some point, and our population is aging, the speculation of census says that our community is going to be a retirement community. And how many people do you think in retirement can afford that load? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for your comments. Steve?
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Supervisors. Steve Smith, County Administrator. So before this, the presentation on the budget study session begins, I just wanted to note a few things and provide some information. So I know many people may think about the budget primarily as a finance document, but really it's a policy document because the Board of Supervisors are making, eventually when it's adopted, making decisions on where those very limited and precious resources from the public will be spent on public services. Sutter County has some unique challenges compared to any other county in California. Nearly 70% of the land is in a FEMA floodplain, and the next closest county is in the mid to high 30% range. So you're looking at almost double for Sutter County compared to any other county in the state. And so that right away severely limits development opportunities for housing and businesses alike. However, with unique challenges, unique solutions have resulted over the years. Sutter County is the only county in California to run behavioral health services for another county. Sutter and Yuba counties are the only counties to share a full-time health officer. Sutter County has Tri-County Juvenile Hall split between Sutter and Yuba, run by Yuba, and Colusa County. Tri-County Child Support Services run by YOLO for Colusa and Sutter counties. Bi-County Farm Advisor with YOLO and, Yuba and Sutter counties. Even our weight truck through Weights and Measures is, I believe, 3 counties, right, with Nevada and Yuba and Sutter. We have SASA, our animal control services, which are run by Yuba City on behalf of Sutter County and Live Oak. And even our levies and our public protection here through Sabufka with a partnership with Butte County. So this board has been very efficient with public funds and very conscious of the limited nature of funding available. This is the first board to request a budget study session before the budget workshop when the recommended budget is published and presented in June. I believe this is the second county budget workshop we've had. So that's relatively new and brought on by this Board of Supervisors. I also wanted to let folks know that county town hall meetings are being held in each district. We've had one in District 3 and one in District 5, and we'll have upcoming meetings, and we're advertising them on our website and Facebook, other social media as well. And because the board wants people, the public, to give input on these important issues and priorities. And to that end, a survey has been created and posted on the county website. I believe there's a button at the top of the main landing page if you just go to suttercounty.org. But you can also go directly to it at suttercounty.org/feedback. And we encourage all county residents to take this survey that discusses and asks you to rank county priorities, and also has an open-ended part where you can type in different priorities that you as a citizen may have. So with that, I think we can go ahead and get started, and Leanne Link, Assistant CAO, has a presentation for you.
Good afternoon, Leanne Link, Assistant CAO, as Steve mentioned. He sold my best line of the day, which is that the budget is not a financial document, it is a policy document. So to that end, our focus today really is on the programs that the county has discretion over. They're the sources that we use, or the services that we use, are discretionary dollars, which are very limited. And while our budget overall may be about $400 million, the board really controls about $60 million of that. And you'll see as we go through the slides how important the board's influence is on that toward the safety and security and well-being of our community. So just to be clear about what today is, this is in advance of the budget hearings and the county's budget presentation. This really is the time for feedback and gives the board members the ability to provide direct input to our office in preparing the CAO's recommended budget. But really, the budget for us is a year-round process, and we're continually listening to the board members, listening to the community, and we really shape the budget around the things that we hear are priorities for the board. So this is just one more opportunity or one more bite at that apple. So we'll review the budget process just very briefly, but more importantly, the county policies that we already have in place that the board has adopted regarding the budget. We'll review the revenues, the discretionary revenues and other resources to support the proposed appropriations. We'll review the requested capital projects and building maintenance projects. Most of those projects are not included in the current version of the budget. We usually reserve our commitment for capital projects for that, and so we're still working out how much is remaining in the commitment for capital projects. We're going to review the vehicle and capital asset requests, review the position requests, and then ask you to provide direction on continued activities to address homelessness. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some updated information on the American Recovery Plan Act, or ARPA. The difference between last year and this year is pretty profound, and so I'd like to go over that with you because there's a lot more discretion for the board in the use of the ARPA funds. So this is our budget process for the next fiscal year as adopted by the board in December. You approved the budget calendar. In January, the CAO's office released the budget instructions to the departments. And then we work with the departments through March. After we get the budget requests submitted, our office meets with every department head and goes over their requests so that we thoroughly understand it and can make an informed recommendation to your board. Then today, of course, we have the budget study session. We'll be back to you in June for the recommended budget presentation. Budget hearings follow on the following Monday. And then on June 28th, we'll ask you to adopt the budget for next fiscal year. And this is a little bit different than the budget process from a couple of years ago in that we adopt before the start of the fiscal year. So that really allows the departments to make any changes to programs or anything like that right at the beginning of the fiscal year for the most effective use of the funds. So you have Administrative Policy 504, which is specifically for budget and fiscal management. It dictates that we increase our general reserve by $500,000 a year up until it's 5% of general fund appropriations. We're currently at $2.1 million. We have tripled our reserves over the last couple of years, which really helps us to at some point we will have a financial downturn, and it helps us to not have to be on roller coaster budgeting where we ramp up and then we drop down and we ramp up. That's really not good for our constituents, and so we try to stabilize. We also have a budget stabilization fund that we have currently $1 million in. So in the appropriations that are presented to you today, that would increase that by $500,000 as well, in line with the policy. We have an appropriation for contingency that we increase incrementally each year. Last year it was $1 million. This year we've budgeted at $1.2 million. And then we also put $1 million annually into our pension pre-funding account with Public Agency Retirement Services, PARS, and we also put $100,000 for OPEB. And that will help us to accelerate the pay down of our pension and OPEB liability. And currently with the pension liability, we're looking at an acceleration by about 7 to 8 years. So it really is substantial.
Excuse me, Leanne.
Sure.
That's the plan we put together, what was that, about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago?
I think it was actually in 2017 and implemented in 2018. Yeah.
Now, we figure this pay off within the next, if everything goes accordingly, another
15 years.
15?
Yeah. it will be, right now the amortization schedule on our unfunded liability for pensions is about 22 years. And so this would accelerate it by 7, so take it down to about 15 years. So certainly within the horizon. And then we also want our departments that don't have general fund support to actually accumulate reserves so that they can continue to operate in a downturn without having to rely on the general fund. So these are the revenues that we have projected for this year. This is the discretionary revenues. These are the revenues that run through the general fund, so Fund 001. And we have non-department revenues of about $48 million. That's mostly property tax and sales tax, a little bit of transient occupancy tax, some redevelopment monies, some fines, fees, and other revenues, but it comes out to just under $50 million. And then within the general fund, we have department-specific revenues. So departments like the Ag Commissioner have their own revenues that come from the state that are generated by gas tax, for example. And so those come in, and so we add those all together to show the revenues within the general fund. So we are also projecting that our carryover fund balance available at the end of the current fiscal year will be about $10.7 million, which is good. The departments always operate very efficiently and within the resources that are appropriated for them. And we are going to see some of that money come back this year. And so that helps us to support the next year's budget. So this is our property tax revenue, and you can see that it has progressed and increased over time. This chart goes back to 2015-16, so about 8 years ago. But now we're at about $31.6 million. And just for clarification, for every property tax dollar that's collected in the unincorporated areas of the county, the county only retains about 16 cents of that dollar. So very little, actually, of the property tax dollar. And the vast majority of that money goes to schools, which offsets the state general fund contribution into the schools. So we retain just a very small amount. So even while we have billions and billions of dollars of properties, the county's actual revenue from that is fairly low. And we're kind of in the middle statewide. There are some counties that get about 12 cents. There are some counties that get about 26 cents. And it's all over depending on what the your budget was like when Prop 13 came into existence. And so it kind of held everything in place there, and that's the money that you get. So our sales tax revenue is actually pretty robust this year. We've seen a pretty good increase in the current year. And what's included in the sales tax revenue is about $550,000 worth of tax exchange revenue. So from the previously negotiated tax exchange agreements, we get some additional sales tax dollars that are transferred from the city of Yuba City. So it's about 10% of our overall sales tax revenue. And you'll notice that for next year, we use Hinderleiter de Lamas as our sales tax consultant. And they're actually forecasting that we're going to see a little bit of a dip next year in our revenues. As you'll recall, the largest online retailer, who shall remain nameless, but has probably delivered something with a smile to your door, changed their way of reporting this year. And so every time a package is transported by one of their warehouses within the state of California, it's the jurisdiction where the warehouse is that gets credited with the money instead of the point of sale, which is your front door. And that's caused us, it's probably a couple $100,000 worth of loss that we're seeing in that. But we have other revenues that have made up for it. And that doesn't include things that are shipped from outside the state. If they're shipped from outside the state and sales tax is charged, then the point of sale is actually the residence.
To the chair, if I may, Leanne. And just to provide some perspective when folks hear something like that change, we immediately reached out to RCRC, the Rural Counties Association, and CSAC to see what we could do about changing that back, because it impacts smaller counties like Sutter, the change in the way sales tax is accounted for. But politically, when you've got LA County and the larger urban counties benefiting from that, you're not even going to be able to get off the ground something to get voted to approve to change it back. So a lot of effort went in to figure that all out, but people don't always see that behind the scenes. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
We're up against the big dogs. So this slide is really about the county funding uses, and the next one as well. And the use areas are not listed in anything but alphabetical order, so it's not in priority order or anything like that. But you can see in the unincorporated areas, we are the municipality. We're providing the municipal services such as building inspection, emergency operations, fire service, land use planning, issuing building permits, parks and recreation. We run our own planning commission that's separate from any of the cities. We provide road construction and repair and also water resources services. Internally, the services that we provide within the county benefit not only the municipal services that we provide, but also the services that we provide throughout the county. So those are, administrative services, the Auditor Controller's Office, who actually also provides some payroll and accounting services for special districts. The Board of Supervisors, our building maintenance, our clerk of the board who helps with running your meetings, county council, we have our own attorney, fleet management, so managing all of the fleet vehicles, human resources, all of the employees for all of the departments that provide services. And then whenever we have our own building or construction projects, we have our own in-house construction design, engineering, and construction management. And here's what we provide to the whole county. And these are also in alphabetical order. We are the provider of adoptions assistance, so helping people to adopt children for permanency, adult protective services, agricultural commissioner, behavioral health, all of the behavioral health services on behalf of both counties. We issue birth, death, and marriage certificates and other official documents. We're the provider of CalWorks employment and eligibility services to help people become financially self-sufficient. We are the provider of child support services, child welfare services, or child protective services. We are the prosecutor of crimes. We are the arrestor. We house people in our jail, and we defend them. So we have the district attorney and some other ones I'll name in just a second. We run all of the elections. We provide homeless services across the county, not just in the unincorporated areas. We provide in-home supportive services, so helping people who are income eligible to be able to stay in their homes and not have to go into institutional care. We are the jail. There isn't a jail in the city of Live Oak or the city of Yuba City. We provide the library in all of the branches, including Sutter and Live Oak, and of course Yuba City. We are Medi-Cal and CalFresh eligibility. We provide the museum services. We process passports. We do adult and juvenile probation for the whole county. We maintain property records, so any property transaction, we're responsible for maintaining the recordation of that. Property tax collection, we collect on behalf of all of the municipalities as well as the schools, and then we distribute it. We are the ones who actually distribute that money out. We provide public defender, so it doesn't matter if you are accused of a crime in a city or in the unincorporated area. We are the defense if you're unable to provide it for yourself. We're a public guardian, so we become the responsible party for many of our people who can't provide that service on their own. We provide public health services. We are the treasury for some of the school districts as well as some of the smaller districts in the county. And then we provide UC Farm Advisor services and the WIC Supplemental Nutrition Program. So we do a lot. So these are the appropriation requests for the current fiscal year. And just to put this into context, while we've met with the departments, we really haven't made any adjustments to the budget. This is what we call the requested budget. What will come back to you in June is the CAO's recommended budget, and we'll make some adjustments between now and then. As you can see, public safety funds, general fund request is the largest within the county at almost 24.9 million. The general fund, which is all of the smaller departments that aren't public safety or trial courts oriented or health and human services oriented. The rest of them reside within the general fund, so that's $24 million. The health fund is almost $5.5 million, and that's largely the public health department and our homeless services, which we'll talk about in a few minutes because the change in homeless services is pretty profound. Trial courts includes our probation department, the bailiffs that the sheriff's office provides for the courts, as well as our trial court maintenance of effort level. Appropriation for contingency, as I mentioned earlier, is currently budgeted at $1.2 million. The increase in the reserves per policy is $1 million. County Fire this year has requested $862,000 in general fund support. As you'll recall, last year the county provided $140,000 and change, and this year their budget is not fully supported or not supported by about $850,000 worth of revenue. So that's something for the board to consider, certainly, as to whether or not that really is a general fund obligation. But I did include it in here so that you can see the request. And then welfare, out of all of the huge number of programs that we run on behalf of the state for social services, their maintenance of effort level is only $432,000, and it really hasn't changed anytime in the last probably decades. And so that stays very stable. So that gives us a total net county cost of about $62 million. So this stacks up the budget requests based on their size. That's the only criteria here, and it's by net county costs, which I should have defined net county costs for you. When we have a program, often, and I'll use the Ag Commissioner as an example, but her program has revenues that are specific to that. So when we talk about net county costs, it's the total of appropriations minus any very program-specific revenues. So it doesn't include things like Prop 172, which is relatively discretionary to the board as long as you spend it on public safety. It's really the very specific revenues that support. And so you can see that the top two in this request are the county jail and the sheriff. I think in terms of a policy statement and the board's policy of really putting public safety high on the map, this is about the best illustration I can give you because you can see how far above all of the other needs it is. But you'll also know, and in your packet, you have a separate sheet that I think makes this a little bit easier to read. I tried to blow it up a little bit. But you can see, we've got the jail, the sheriff, the district attorney, and then county health, and then sheriff communications, which is mostly dispatch. And then the juvenile hall is in there. These are costs that the county board has said, the safety of our community is our highest priority. This shows you that that's, in fact, where the board has put their money. So this is change in net county cost. So the increases that we've seen in the expected general fund contribution or requested general fund contribution from the departments, you'll see that the sheriff coroner is about $1.9 million. And I just want to be clear about this. This wasn't something that Sheriff Barnes came in and said, oh, hey, I need all this money. These were mostly negotiated salary and benefit increases that were provided to the Peace Officers Association as well as the Deputy Sheriff's Association. Association. And those costs fall largely on the sheriff coroner's budget. That's their patrol budget, or their kind of meat and potatoes there. And then you'll see that the county jail also had a large cost increase, also related to the DSA increases. County fire, CSAF, shows you that, their net county cost is the increase is pretty significant. That's the $850,000 minus the $140,000 that they got last year. So this is just the amount of the increase. And some of that is driven by the increase in negotiated salaries and benefits, but some of it's also driven by the reduction in Safer Grant, I think ends in February. Is that right? Okay. So homeless services also has a pretty large increase, and that's due mostly to the absence of grant funding that we've had in previous years. Commercial leases is really our acting as the landlord in the Kmart building. And the reason that that's so high is that we didn't appropriate it when the budget was adopted. We came in later in September and figured out what we needed for that budget. So it was 100% of the increases in there. Human resources has some pretty significant staffing needs that they've requested for, although we'll work with them on that because there may be some ability to pick that up through the ARPA process. Water resources, I think that was a shift in the staffing within development services. Fire services admin is increased because of a request for an additional battalion chief and a battalion chief vehicle. So that's pretty significant. And also, I think the fire raises applied to that department as well. Emergency services has also requested a couple of positions. As you recall, they're a pretty small budget unit, so anything they request is going to bump them up. And then building maintenance is just normal costs that we all see in our costs going up every year. Okay, so that brings us to my least favorite slide in this. However, I can explain a little bit about it. So if you saw the net general fund cost of $62 million, but we have about $59 million available for appropriation, that leaves us with a budget deficit right now of $3.2 million. That's not unusual for this time of year. Remember, these are the requests. We go back and we pare down the budget, and when the CAO brings his budget back in June, it will be a balanced budget. Lots of times we're able to identify additional revenue. We're able to make some adjustments. We are able to certainly balance our budget responsibly, and so we will do that this year as well. So with that, before I get into the projects, the capital assets, the vehicles, and the personnel that are requested, I thought I would stop and give you a moment to ask any questions or provide any additional information that you...
So, Leanne, I was just doing a little math here on this. I get no page number. Appropriation request net county costs. This one here. And I just was trying to figure out the number of percentage of total budget we spent on public safety. So I added public safety funds, and I added trial courts, county fire. I came up with $30,800,066 and $666. Total cost of $62,665,439 for a net. I divide those two. I came up with 49.15% of total dollars spent on, and I consider that all kind of public safety. The only thing that we don't really have wrapped in there is anything for roads, or I don't see that in there. That's kind of public safety too, because it's important the public be able to commute safely from point A to point B. Is that 49.15%? Is that typical for counties to spend on public safety?
Yeah, it depends on the county, but it's probably pretty comparable And, once again, remember, this is just general fund. And so this isn't the county budget as a whole.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's about average.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay. So I actually.
sorry.
Oh,
Right through the chair.
I'm sorry.
So the DSA and fire, right, the essential workers, and their pay was about $750,000 that were able to use ARPA funds for. How do we? Is that going to be the same going forward in this budget?
I beg your pardon. Oh, so are you saying that what we used ARPA funds for last year?
Yes.
Well, we can. I mean, we can use the ARPA funds, and I'll talk about it in a little bit. But basically, the ARPA funds, the calculation that the federal government has given us has allowed us to capture the entirety of the ARPA funds, $18.8 million, as revenue loss, which gives the board a lot more discretion. You don't have to fit within their specific silos. You just can't use it for certain things like reserves, with pension pre-funding, or to offset a tax reduction. So, and I'll go through that in the final slide.
All right.
So okay.
Sorry, I'm just going to put this out there. This has to do with a budget. Earlier, Ms. Jaeger asked about audits and so forth. Where are we at with, we just had the study done with the Sheriff's Department, which was a great study and showed the city of Live Oak and their shortfall, I should say, with the sheriff and so forth. And I know our fire chief is working on the same thing with the city of Live Oak as well, and the new negotiation, the new contract. So as we work on these budgets, we've already implemented this. The sheriff's department's already been done working with the fire right now to find out, because when you see that 3.2, that's what we're cutting into. One thing is, have we figured out the Live Oak boat ramp and the City of Yuba City boat ramp? How long are we? If you don't mind, Ken, would you mind stepping up for a minute, please? He comes prepared. Look at that. He's ready to go. Ken, how long do we have left on both ramps? I believe it's getting pretty close, isn't it?
So for City of Yuba City, we're actually done with our grant obligations there.
And how much does that cost us a year?
So for City of Yuba City, 1 second here. Last one. This year, it's not costing us a whole lot. The City of Yuba City is only costing us about $2,600.
For the whole year?
So far this year, yeah.
No, but what was it last year and the year before?
Okay, so last year, take a look real quick. Last year, it cost us roughly $6,000.
$6,000. And Live Oak and the campground over there?
For last year? You want last year's? Okay. 1 second.
I thought these numbers were a lot higher than.
Oh, sure. So the study that we did in 2020 with the joint study with Development Services, County Council, CAO's office, of all the boat launches combined, that includes Live Oak Park, the annual expenses were estimated to be about $245,000 to a high end of $350,000, and that really depends on what kind of damage could be happening.
Because it could vary from year to year.
right, like with the road at Tisdale boat launch, that sort of thing. And then our annual income for all four was estimated to be between $25,000 to $60,000 a year. So roughly, you're looking at a $200,000 loss a year. This year, we've done a little bit better in collecting some of the revenues, so we're not in such bad shape, but we are losing money at all four of them.
Okay, so if we were to, let's say if we were to handle just the Teasdale and Wards, is it?
Tisdale and Boyd's.
Boyd's, that's it, yes.
Right. So we're still under obligation to run the Live Oak boat ramp, but we're not obligated to operate the park. And I think I have, so Tisdale, it looks like according to our study, the grant obligations, that expires in January of 2023, so just around the corner. Live Oak, that grant obligates us to operate that boat ramp until 2026. And then both Yuba City and Boyd's, the grant obligations expired in November of 2020.
How much does a campground cost?
So right now, the campground, ironically, is making us the most money. And that was, last year, last fiscal year, we housed fire evacuees. And so the state of California paid us roughly, I believe it was $9,000 in revenue. So that really helped the bottom line with Live Oak. But let me give you that exact number. So our unreimbursed costs were $25,000 at Live Oak Park and boat ramp. And we estimated, or I can give you the totals here. The use of the park, our revenues were $12,926, $13,000, and the boat launch fees were roughly $10,000. So we made more at the park than the boat launch.
But we've been discussing this for the last few years, so I know I have, about possibly doing away with, letting the Yuba City take care of their boat ramp and letting Live Oak see if they want to handle that boat ramp, just to even a savings of it seems like it could be a savings between 20 and 100,000 any given year.
Yeah, we could definitely save money by not operating those boat launches or the parks, but it's really a discussion that needs to be held with those agencies and their willingness. From everything in my experience dealing with this for the last few years, it doesn't seem like we have many takers.
Well,
No,
I'm sorry, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say the problem with this is we're trying to give something away that nobody wants. And in my early discussions with the city of Live Oak, I'm less than optimistic that they want to take this on. So that, I think, is the problem we face.
Well, but how is that fair to the taxpayers of Sutter County, and how is it fair to the firefighters and everyone else in every other department? See, I look at it as 5,000 here, 10,000 here, 20,000 here, 50,000. It adds up in the grand scheme of things. It's not just, at the end of the day, it's only 20,000. It adds up. And I think that's a discussion that we're going to have with them, with the city of Live Oak and the city of Yuba City, because we can go on and on. The partnership with the city in the library, partnership with the city in the museum. These are these discussions we have to have. We can't talk about these. We just got to sit down, and maybe we'll put this on the agenda for our next inter-city county meeting, which is going to be held next month, I believe. Yep. All right. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that.
Sure, you're welcome.
So,
Actually, there's one last thing, Leanne. In there, you brought up homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Right here, you got homeless. It's costing us what? Just a little over 400,000.
homeless,
And the projected
that's the growth, I believe.
or growth. What I'm getting at is now with the city of Yuba City coming in, that number could go the other way. Possibly, isn't it?
Very much, yeah.
Yes.
It's certainly, that the increase in homeless cost is due to the loss of grant funding. Not that it's just the grants ran out. And so having a partner to help to share that cost absolutely will reduce the net county cost in that program. Okay, so over time, the county has really made an effort to sustain a level of services and to try to maintain such crucial services as law enforcement. But the other side of that is it doesn't give us a lot of money to repair and maintain our buildings. And so we've had a lot of capital projects and building requests. Most of these are not included, as I mentioned earlier, in the budget as you see it right now. We do have a committed fund balance for capital projects, and we've been able to do things like replace roofs this year. And so I just wanted you to have a chance to see what's actually being requested. And I'll give you an example on here. The third item down, the clerk recorder, is the 2nd Street building upgrades and repairs. That building has a floor that's sinking, so it's not level. And it's got, antiquated restrooms there and different problems that are associated with a 100-year-old building. So we are not recommending to put $461,000 into that building. I just wanted you to see the kinds of requests that we got in full. So we haven't weeded out anything here. We have some things for security, the door access replacement, emergency operations center HVAC replacement, or data center HVAC replacement. Those are investments because they'll save us from losing data down the road, hopefully. We have some roof replacements. The Hall of Records, the board has specifically asked us about that. We've estimated that the cost to move back into there is about $300,000. So, the board could say, well, that's what we want to do, and so we would pick that up as a project. So anyway, I don't want to go through them one by one unless you have a specific question, but I have 2 pages of capital projects requests that we're working through. So here's the second page. Edel Hall had requested painting and flooring. The museum had requested for Edel Hall. The Boyd Street roof replacement, I think we're going to have to do. I think that many of our roofs are aging, and when we get the big rainstorms like we had, I think it was week before last, we find out, Supervisor Conant can attest to, we find out when we have roof problems because water and sealing material comes down on their desk.
Sorry, quick question in the museum.
You bet.
Maybe this might be for Neil Hayes. Now, doesn't the museum pay an impact fee too for as a home? When you're building a home, you have the library, and then you have, is it a museum as well for Yuba City? So when's the last time did they help out with the whole remodel? Is that where a lot of that came from? Okay. Do they write a check every year saying, hey, this is what we've come up with impact fees? What I'm getting at is it seems like I know that you could only use that funding for limited stuff, so maybe that $88,000 can come from Yuba City's impact fees. I mean, aren't they building 1,000 homes off of it?
Sorry, the county has an impact fee that includes museums. So when we issue building permits and collect them, there's an impact fee for both the library and the museum.
But the city does not.
Not that I'm aware of.
Wow.
To the chair, I believe the city does have a library-specific one, though. Isn't that how they funded the recent project?
All right, thank you.
Okay. And you can see that most of these would be general fund. So as we go through, we'll make recommendations later on in the year to what we'll be able to fund through the commitment for capital projects. We did have a request for an outdoor restroom at the Sheriff's Training Center, and we thought that would be a fairly simple project. It has turned out not to be so because of some problems with, I think it's the sewer line, right? And so that may be something that we have to address. And And then the Sheriff's Data Center, that $512,000, also an area where the potential for loss is pretty great, so we may have to look at doing something there. So then we also have capital asset requests, and most of these are included in the budget. And so, we'll go through and scrub through these and just make sure that everything is absolutely necessary. But you can see there are about $80,000 in requests from the sheriff, including 3 canines. So they've requested a dog to help with cell extractions and dealing with narcotic searches within the cells. They've also asked for 2 replacement law enforcement canines, and they have committed fund balance that will pay for that. So really, the cost to the county would be for training and maintenance of those, I believe. Is that correct? Okay. And then they've requested an ice machine for the medium jail. The medium jail, I believe, does not have air conditioning. It has swamp coolers, and so they think that the ice may be helpful in keeping things cool in there for the employees as well as the residents. General Services has asked for a dump trailer for homeless cleanup, and then Roads have asked for 2 pieces of equipment, 2 tractors, and those are paid for entirely with roads funds. These are the vehicle requests, and I apologize for how small this is. There were a lot of vehicle requests, and these are the ones that come out of the general fund. You'll see up here that most of these are replacement vehicles. Many of them are high mileage vehicles, and fleet management assigns a number, which is not included on this chart, but they rank or rate their vehicles based on the cost of maintenance or repairs and the age of the vehicle. And everything that is being requested is a 16 or higher, I believe. So, certainly vehicles that need to be replaced. They're not just asking for something new because they want it. The most significant request in here is about $800,000 for the sheriff for 8 replacement vehicles. And they've not only requested the Ford Interceptors, the Explorers, but also some half-ton pickups, Ford F-150, that are a special police responder vehicle. And the reason for the difference there has to do with availability of the Explorers. Just getting those vehicles is very difficult, and so they've pivoted to something that they think will work equally well with them in their request. And then just a couple of small SUVs for code enforcement and building inspector are requested in development services. Mm-hmm. I believe they're Ford F-150 half-ton pickups. Well, there are some that are Explorers. Those are the full-size SUVs. Those are the, oh, I see. That's my mistake. I think I did a drag and drop on there. So I apologize. Those are Ford F-150s where you see Ford Explorers. Yeah. No, I apologize. That's mine, and I didn't catch that earlier. Good catch. Okay, so then we also had vehicles that have no general fund impact. Only one is not a replacement vehicle for HHS in the welfare budget. It's a Ford Escape, and it's paid for with the Home Safe grant. The rest are all paid for with separate funding, including roads fund and social services funding. And then these are the information technology requests that have general fund impact. The assessor, tax collector, or treasurer, tax collector, and auditor have asked for about $50,000 just on maintenance on the Aumentum property tax system, which my understanding is the system is working very, very well. I think they're very pleased with it. Behavioral health, public guardian, which is a net county cost, is also asking for panoramic software for accounting. So the two of those combined would be a general fund cost of about $166,000. The sheriff has asked for live scan peripheral replacement for both the dispatch area or the I think that's budget unit 1600, right? And then also for the jail, I believe that equipment is currently at the end of its useful life, and so probably has to be replaced. The library has asked for a firewall replacement. Probation has asked for, I think it's a Vigilon security camera system, and that's really mostly for their parking lot. And then public health has asked for county or department-wide Wi-Fi. And then these are the non-general fund IT requests. So behavioral health has asked also for the security camera system. They have some PC requests. They have other requests that you'll see listed on there. Those are all paid for out of behavioral health funds. There is no county general fund cost in our behavioral health department. Welfare has asked for certain replacements and refreshes. And then information technology, which is billed through the IT internal service fund. So it's billed out to the entire county, including general fund and non-general fund departments, has asked for a few things, not a huge request for them in this current year, but certainly a lot around information security. So then getting to position requests, these are the ones that have a general fund impact. The assessor's office has offered up a position to decrease from 1.0 FTE to 0.5 FTE for an assessment technician. The auditor controller has asked for a property tax manager, but will also delete an account clerk. The auditor controller and human resources share a position, and they both really have a full-time need for it. So that 0.45 would be increasing that up to a 1.0 FTE. And then you'll see in the line right below, there's a 0.55 that would increase the one for human resources up to a 1.0 FTE. In human resources, this one is an extremely crucial position. The accounting and human resources software that we're running right now is aging and breaking. And so it's kind of archaic software and cannot be fixed. And so we're having to do a lot of reconciliation manually, and we simply don't have enough people to do it. And what the consequence of that is sometimes employees are overbilled or underbilled for benefits, and then we can't just, if an employee is underbilled for benefits, we can't just say, oh, we billed you wrong, so we'll give you a pass on this. We don't have the authority to excuse that. And so we have to go back and collect that money back from the employees. It's not very pleasant. And so we want to make sure that we're getting this right. And so being able to reconcile is really important there. Human Resources has also asked for an assistant director of human resources. We're probably going to pull that and substitute it with something related to a proposed project to replace our accounting and human resources software system, which is called Workday. There is an office assistant that they're requesting to go just up to a full-time position from 0.5% to, or 0.5 FTE to 1 FTE. An assistant planner in planning and building, and some of that cost would be offset by fees. A building inspector to handle the workload that we have. Emergency Services has requested an emergency coordinator position. We currently have one emergency services manager. So when he goes on vacation, we really have no backup, and they do have a large workload there. And then they've also asked for a staff analyst in order to manage the grant funds, which we could be pulling in a lot more grant funds for our emergency services. Fire Services Administration has asked for an additional battalion chief, and the cost on there, the $256,869, also includes a battalion chief vehicle for about $90,000. And this would be back up to our fire chief. We have times of the year when we are doing mutual aid, or we simply have people off, and it would provide some backup there. The jail has requested a correctional sergeant. This is in line with the sheriff's staffing study that was done, and they've offered up that they would delete a correctional technician, but the jail also has some savings from the food contract, that the sheriff was able to get a better deal on the meals that are provided to the inmates. So that cost really is offset by that savings. And then homeless services is requested as social services aid because that's more in line with what they need. And then they would be deleting an office assistant in order to get that. So that's a net gain of $0. Public health has requested a physical therapist. That's for the California Children's Services. And that is, they provide medical therapy to children with disabilities. They've also requested a public assistance specialist and would be deleting a medical clerk too in order to do that. So those are the general fund requests. The cost is $1.33 million, almost $1.34 million, and there is offsetting revenue of about $300,000 for a net of $1,047,000. So these are the non-general fund ones, and I'll go through these pretty quickly because they don't have a general fund impact. But behavioral health has asked for a total of 7 positions. They would be deleting 1 position, and these are in line with their business need. And 2 of the positions on there are for billing specialists, which would help them really to collect billing from people who are private pay or insurance, or make sure that medication is done timely. Then they've requested an executive secretary, deleting an account clerk 3 and adding a medical clerk, and then a prevention services coordinator and another staff analyst.
Chair, can I have a quick question for you, Leanne? This just over $1 million in the general fund impact for position requests, is that included in the $63 million of the
Yes.
the total? It is included. Okay.
On the general fund.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And then social services has asked for some additional adult services, social workers, and a supervisor for that. And those are all funded by the state. So here's homelessness and the difference that we see in net county cost. The first year it was about $400,000, and we were able to offset that cost with CARES Act money. For the current fiscal year, we anticipate that the cost is going to be about $767,000. And you know, these are those ongoing efforts that we have. This is Better Way. This is the homeless staff trying to help people to get into permanent housing and permanent employment. This is we continue to work with Harmony Village. As you know, we're working on the 60-day RV parking to see if RV parking is actually something that will help us with homeless parking their RVs on our city streets and county roads. The staff that support that include the housing support, the shelter staffing, our regional participation, and then the budget request does not really include development services time for cleanup, nor does it include the sheriff. Those are built into their respective budgets. So then finally I get to ARPA, and this year the Treasury changed the assumed increase that local governments should have in their revenue, and it went up quite substantially. So when we did the calculation over the 2 years, so we actually measure on a calendar year, but compare to the base year, which is 18-19, a fiscal year. But when we do the calculation, which takes binders, if you go into my office, you'll see binders of the calculation. But we believe that our revenue loss under Treasury's formula is about $29 million. So we are well above the $18.8 million that we were allocated from ARPA. So what the ARPA rules allow is for those funds, the revenue recovery funds, to be spent on governmental services, exclusive of increasing the reserves, of paying lump sum payments for pension debt, and for offsetting a tax decrease. So if the board many counties, the board sets the tax rate, and so if they had offered a decrease, you can't offset it for there. But other than that, the board really can use this as it sees fit. So the county's ARPA ad hoc committee, which is Supervisors Ziegenmeyer and Conant, met this morning, and we went over. We have commitments to date of $2.3 million in ARPA funding, and those were really in 3 major areas. Sorry, I'm trying to find my ARPA worksheet. But they were reimbursing us for a program that we did to support local businesses. That was about $900,000, about $1.25 million for cybersecurity software and hardware, and then $150,000 for COVID testing that we've provided to the community. The board also negotiated about $700,000 worth of essential worker pay, and while that isn't included in the $2.3 million, that is a fund that is a cost that we could apply to the ARPA funding and offset our net county costs. So that would decrease that budget deficit by about $700,000, or almost a quarter of it. So, just as a reminder. The deadline to encumber funds is December 31st of 2024, so we still have a lot of time. And then all funds must be completely expended by December 31st, 2026. So our office will come back based on our meeting this morning with the ARPA ad hoc committee. We'll come back in May with some recommendations for ARPA uses, and so you'll have a chance to discuss it further at that point. So with that, the next step is the budget book will be published, and that's the comprehensive budget. So you'll not only see the general fund budget, but you'll see the entire county budget with narratives for each budget unit and an overall budget message. That should be published on or by June 9th. And then the CAO's office comes back to the board for the budget presentation on June 14th. As I stated earlier, budget hearings start on June 20th with budget adoption anticipated for June 28th. So before I go on, I wanted to mention that the budget this is no easy document to put together. It requires hours and hours and hours of work. The departments start it, and they do a ton of work that goes into that. So we really have to thank our department heads and our fiscal staff. And then the budget gets turned into our office. And so Annie, Lou, and Laura Granados and I are charged with actually starting to comb through that budget, meeting with departments and refining it until we get to where we have the final budget package. So I really have to give a big thank you to the departments and the staff in the CAO's office for their dedication to this, because it is no small feat. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And it is 10 till 3. We made it.
Through the chair.
Supervisor?
I just want to say thank you. What an great workshop. Thanks for the information. I just want to thank you and your staff for doing an amazing job putting this together in a great presentation. I mean, I know that you guys found a way to reduce that $3.2 million hold to drop another $750,000 this morning, and we've got time to make this thing balanced. But I just want to say thank you once again. Appreciate it. Your work.
Appreciate that.
Through the chair. Yeah, I want to say thank you also, Leanne, and also want to remind you and whoever's on the committee for the ARPA funds, don't forget about my broadband money in District 1, okay?
No, it was, like she said earlier, Supervisor Conan and I sat in on that ARPA meeting, and it's, I love having everyone show up to these budget hearings and so forth, because, it's very important. This is going to be a big budget year. You saw earlier where Leanne talked about how their expectations for next year for tax revenue coming in. And I think it's going to be because there's not going to be anything there to sell. I mean, there's not much out there anyways. You look at these car lots, tractor lots, manufacturing lots, there's just not enough out there. And so we're going to all have to work really hard together this upcoming year to make this work. And that's why every little bit's going to count, because we got to make sure we put the money in the right spots. All right? Because at the end of the day, it is public safety. But we also have a huge behavioral health crisis going on here in Sutter County. And that is going to be huge. That's going to be near and dear to my heart. You look at homeless, that these are the numbers that I looked up. 75% of women are homeless because of behavioral health. 25 to 30% of men because of behavioral health. And that branches on to other things in substance abuse and so forth. And we're all working on this. We all know there's an issue. You know, the numbers have doubled in substance abuse over the last 2 years. And so here we have to connect, but we also know that we have to find money somewhere to put in the right spots and the right people in the right spots to make this work. Because we can't continue to go the path that we are. It's just not working. The homeless is getting out of control. And we're working on these tools. That's why we're working with the City of Yuba-City. We have these monthly meetings with the City of Yuba-City. We have when is our meeting with the city? Is it the big forum we're having? It's going to be right here.
Tentatively, yeah, for the either May 15th or 16th,
Yes.
I believe. I think the 16th.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. But I want to thank you for showing up today. We really appreciate it. It's going to be every budget is huge, but I think this is going to be real crucial this year, especially because we don't know what's going to happen next year the way things are going. But thank you. Have a great day, and we will adjourn.